All right, guys, thank you for joining us again for another Defender Users Group. Hopefully everybody will enjoy today's session. We do have a guest on today that's going to bring you some insights into a topic I'm sure you all are interested in. Do want to remind everybody, though, that the Chatham House rules do apply here. So for this, participants are free to use the information that's received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speaker nor that of any other participant may be revealed and stuff. If you are not currently a member of the Defender User Group, please take a second to go on and scan the QR code that's on the screen. This will redirect you to become a member so that you can find out when we're doing our next session. If there's questions that you have or that you want to raise, you can raise those in the group there as well. We do track that so we can kind of know what's going on or be able to help you guys out. Kind of an intro into this group if you're new. The Defender User Group was actually started as a community-driven initiative just to help focus the efforts on kind of across education for best practice, real-world experience within the Microsoft security stack, being able to help you guys explore how to further develop not only your skill sets and tooling, but also know how to deploy things within your own environments. If you want to contact us, there is an email for the Defender User Group. It's doug@ontenu.io. Please feel free to email us any questions. If you have certain sessions that you want to hear about or topics that you would like to see in the future, please let us know that as well. We're always looking forward to finding out new things that you guys actually want to take and know. And then for something else that you can listen to in the meantime, we do record podcast. The podcast is Defend Your Time. It's just little short snippets, so they might be 5 to 15 minutes long. Something that you can listen to in the background just to kind of get some knowledge about how to do different things. There's lots of topics and stuff that's already recorded. Again, if you have something that you want to include in that, please reach out to us through the doug@ontenu.io email. We'll be happy to see if we can get some of those recorded for you. Without further ado, though, we do have our guest speaker today, which is Jonathan Reed. He's a senior solutions architect at Microsoft. And I'm going to turn this over now to Jonathan for him to bring up his slides and introduce himself.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, and I'll share my slides in a second here. But good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hopefully you are seeing my slides now. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see them. Quickly introduce myself. My name is Jonathan Reed. I'm a senior solutions architect here at Microsoft. I've been with the company for about 6 years now, focused on cloud solutions, at most Azure, obviously, infrastructure, security, and of course AI now, given that that's the hottest topic of the last few years. Thankful for joining the Defender User Group to talk a little bit about AI and security operations and how we see it at Microsoft and some practical use cases for cybersecurity teams. I will run through a couple of, I have about 15 slides. I do not like PowerPointing people to death. So typically what I do is I'll run through the slides, which hopefully will be engaging in terms of the topics that I mentioned. And then we'll go into a demo of one of our AI solutions for cybersecurity in Security Copilot. Oh, let's continue on here. So I think we're obviously all cybersecurity professionals in the room or have some ties to cybersecurity within our organizations. And one of the things that we recognized at Microsoft and how we viewed this is security teams live in a constant stream of alerts, incidents, and investigations. So there's just a large swath of data that you have to work through in order to protect all the various endpoints and attack vectors that you might have within your organizations that bad actors might be looking to exploit. This includes your identity solutions, your endpoints that your end users use, data warehouses that you have that back end your applications. And of course, this can live in a number of different cloud solutions that you might have. There's just so much data, and the challenge is not just the sheer amount of data, but also kind of, again, the signals are spread across all these tools and roles and workflows, which is, again, a challenge for cybersecurity professionals. Now, with that said, in terms of the complex environments that we have, cybersecurity is also a complex threat landscape in terms of the number of threat actors and how they're advancing and moving faster and more aggressively. I'm sure by the time, this slide was created, we're tracking, around 1,500 plus threat actors. That's probably double by the time if we were to look at it today. There's so many different actors acting out there. And of course, they are using AI in order to respond more aggressively and have more complex attacks. We've seen that, one example, one of the cybersecurity professionals that I work with here at Microsoft is, they've packaged and used AI to develop attacks that they can package in applications and then sell them on the dark web. So anybody with any bad actor that has very little experience building, now all of a sudden can purchase complex like phishing bots and deploy a wide-ranging phishing attack very quickly, and that was developed with AI. Or they can even use AI to generate their own. So they're acting faster and more aggressively to exploit our environments that we're trying to protect. Also, in terms of what we've seen with organizations and security tools, about 58%, and again, this number is probably more now, is that organizations are using more than 40 plus security tools throughout their environments to protect things, which is adding to all the data points that we talked about on the last slide. Now, there's no right or wrong whether this is bad or things like that, and we're not saying to the point of standardizing on a specific suite. Understand that it is necessary that you probably have to diversify your portfolio in terms of the tools that you're using to protect your environment. But that is also adding to the complexity that cybersecurity professionals have to deal with. And we wanted to look to address that with AI. And the last point is we are seeing that there is a global shortage of cybersecurity workers. And I think this point is twofold. One, yes, cybersecurity becoming more advanced, it is a specialization, and we are seeing that shortage. But also, bad actors are not aware, like they're not saying, oh, this organization has this many tools, I'm not going to attack them, or there's smaller organizations. They'll attack, no matter what. So if you're, I know for me, when I work with international organizations, it could be a large organization that has a humongous cybersecurity team of 50 plus people, or a small one. They still have to act according to the data that they have. They have to be able to manage and understand all the tooling that they have in their environment, whether it's a large shop or not. So I think in terms of the shortage, not only is just the shortage in general, but also understanding that even smaller cybersecurity teams have to be able to understand and manage all the data that's available to them. So that brings the question, given all these complexities in our environment, how can AI help us? We talked about how bad actors are leveraging AI. Well, naturally, we should be able to leverage AI as cybersecurity professionals to help us. And that's what Microsoft took on as a unique challenge in order to help cyber professionals navigate all the data, no matter what tool it's coming from, in order to protect our environments and investigate when bad things happen, which unfortunately they do. So defenders need a new approach. And again, we talked about the tool sets, the attack techniques. We need to be able to combat all of that. And that's where our vision of how AI should be leveraged for cybersecurity professionals come into play. So there's 2 points to this, and then we'll kind of get to how we were thinking about it. But tool consolidation and generative AI can transform security. Now, this is not to say, hey, you should standardize on one tool fits all use cases to protect your environment. That is absolutely not true. But if there was a tool that could coordinate the defense across all your different data points, all the different threat vectors, and be able to navigate across all of that, that would be viable. And that's where we thought AI could certainly help if all the data points were present. That AI could come and navigate those and have some context around what it's actually viewing. And that's where we see the power of an generative AI solution transforming security to consolidate the tools and data points and use the AI to leverage to be able to navigate across that. So a lot of folks, when you think of AI, you think of, your generic large language models where, we're talking the chat GPTs and Claude, Anthropic, all those different models that are publicly available. And those are good for, various use cases, day-to-day use cases. There's nothing wrong with, asking ChatGPT a question. However, when it comes to cybersecurity, we need a little bit more in order to see the benefits of AI. We need real-time signal processing. We need investigative reasoning. If there's new threats that happen, which new threats are put out there every single day, LLMs often are trained on a certain model, and then until the next update comes, it wouldn't have that information that's available to it. Also, they do need to speak in generic terms. They're not investigating various data points. They're just speaking about what they were trained on, which is a lot of knowledge, but again, not having the ability to be precise or based on any technical evidence or data evidence that's out there, and doesn't have the data context. If we look at the prompt, for example, about what is the reputation of vectorsandArrows.com, with a generic LLM, you would maybe get some information about what it is, but it will give you a recommendation on what to look up. And I actually, this morning, I was going through and preparing for this. I went into ChatGPT and asked specifically to see what the response was. Because again, when this slide was made, maybe ChatGPT was earlier in its response. And looking at what it said about threat vectors or vectorsandArrows.com, it did provide some information. And again, I'm referencing my phone because I did look at this morning. And it said I couldn't find much credible, reputable data on vectorsandArrows.com, which is usually a warning sign in itself. So it is hinting at, yeah, this looks suspicious. And it did find that it checked Trustpilot as well as some scam checking website reputation services, and did say like, hey, there's some sketchy things going on with that domain. But you should use some security tooling and other recommendations around how you should deal with attacking or looking at this website. Again, no context for what actually is happening. So think of it as if a user in your environment happened to go into a browser and type this, and then you were trying to do some investigation using a generic LLM. It's not going to have the context for what was even done or whether this is even suspicious or not. It's just going to give you some generalized information. And I think as security professionals, we need a little bit more than just a generic LLM powering our decision making and using that with our investigative processes. So what is our approach to AI power security, knowing that generic LLMs just aren't enough? We wanted to make AI a force multiplier and leverage an advanced LLM that is cybersecurity specific, leveraging threat intelligence signals that we track across the world. And that's where we developed a specific LLM that is centered around cybersecurity and can speak in context on various cybersecurity things going on. Our cybersecurity professionals update the LLM on the back end, and it's completely dedicated to cybersecurity. On top of that, how you interact with it is the Solution Security Copilot, which we'll be talking about in the next couple of slides, where Security Copilot can take natural language queries or even the ability of agents, which is a newer feature of it, and get specific context around threats that are happening in the world. And again, constantly updated by our teams here at Microsoft. The other piece of this is, if you're familiar with AI and RAG generated models or retrieval augmented models, where you are, or retrieval augmented applications rather, when you are querying an LLM, you are asking for a response, but it doesn't have the context or based on any data that you may provide. Well, with Security Copilot, we've created a RAG model to where when you query using Security Copilot and you query the LLM, it might return a generic response, but have what I like to think of it as it has blanks, where it says, I know there might be some data to enrich this response. And this is where you can leverage plugins from either the Microsoft suite of products or other third-party tools in order to enrich the data response so it has some context for what it's responding back to you based on the data within your environment. Now, I want to be clear, we're not training the LLM with your data at all. There's a clearly defined boundary there where the data lives in your environment, it stays in your environment, and it's not being used to train anything. But it can provide additional context when it's returning the response. It can check the various signals based on the plugins you specify in order to provide an enriched response. So that way there is some contextual based evidence on what it's providing back to you based on the data points within your environment. And that's basically how Security Copilot works under the hood in terms of providing that additional context that a generic LLM could not provide. And then as we're looking at the example too with the prompt in terms of the vectors and arrows, and I haven't thrown this into Security Copilot, but you probably would see something similar along with some additional data of now I asked Security Copilot what it is, and there's some context around the reputation score, what is it classified as, and the resolving IP address. And if there were signals from like any of the tools that you might use as a plugin, it would give you some additional context. Let's just say this was used in a user investigation that was flagged in your environment as an incident. If they visited this website, that would be returned by Security Copilot in an incident investigation, for example. So you can see the power of having that RAG model for Security Copilot, where we're using a security-specific large language model grounded in information that was in your environment to return a result. So this presents different use cases for how flexible AI can be leveraged by your teams and in your security workflows. And again, it's twofold. One, embedded agents, which is, again, newer feature of Security Copilot. You now can run automated tasks in your environment, one that is conditional access checker to make sure the conditional access policies. That's one example. But these are agents that can run on behalf of a user, or they can run with a human in the loop interaction to where you can have security checks that are going on in your environment and work with you to make sure your environment is more secure by running these checks periodically. You can create dynamic workflows in response to incidents. And again, when your agents are working in their environment, you're going to get consistent, explainable outcomes because it's working based on the knowledge that you provided and the information on the workflow that is specified. There's also the piece of assistive chat, natural language queries that I think we're all familiar with at this time, where we can now quickly get context and investigate issues with our environments and move faster through incidents. We've seen that, once you learn how to natural language and prompt engineer various things, which you'll see in the demo, we do give you a number of examples that you can pick from. You're getting a faster resolution to what you're looking for. And again, you can traverse all the various data points that you might be plugging into Security Copilot for it to ground its responses in. So we're seeing that it improves resolution time, improves investigative forensic analysis if you're trying to determine like the blast radius of an incident. And also, lastly, helping your analysts build skills. This was one thing that when Security Copilot was developed in our early test users, we found that a lot of cybersecurity professionals said it helped with up-leveling and upskilling their teams. And the reason being is that if I'm a junior analyst and there's things that I may not know about, certain investigative properties, now I can quickly see a trace of how I should be investigating things further, or I can learn about new cyber threats that might be coming up based on, asking Security Copilot questions. So we really did see that there was a level of up-leveling and upskilling that's helping cybersecurity professionals become better at their day-to-day jobs that they need to perform. We also realized at Microsoft when we were building this that AI needs to extend across your security ecosystem. And I wanted to make sure to build a point in that we understand that not everybody is standardizing on Microsoft's suite of products. And that's where we wanted to leverage the power of our partner ecosystem to allow them to build agents that are, and also plug in data from their various systems into the environment to be used as grounding information. So we have a very in-depth and a rich partner ecosystem where there's a number of partner-built agents that have been published that allow you to meet you where you're at with the solutions that you're using within your environment. And you see a lot of the big names there, Commvault, Zscaler, F5, all have agents that are in our security store that you can leverage and deploy within your environment that can be used by Security Copilot and managed by Security Copilot. So we're recommending solutions tailored for your security posture and easing the deployment through the Microsoft Security Store, which you will see in the demo. So where it delivers value, I think, based on everything I'm saying, hopefully it's fairly clear that Security Copilot as an AI solution that aids cybersecurity teams allows you to catch what others miss, all the data volume that you're going and the attack volume growing, allows you to traverse all those signals and determine what matters most, either via agents or natural language queries. You can respond faster because you're able to traverse those data points, as I mentioned. And even if you're in an event of using agents, you're able to get high value outcomes based on those agents and how they're running. And then again, strengthening your team expertise, which I talked about, using Security Copilot as a learning tool as well throughout your environment. I know in this example of the quote, that's one thing with KQL. If you're familiar with Microsoft logging, KQL is just a language how you can query various logs coming from different environments. And a lot of times, if you're not an expert in writing KQL queries, one of the #1 things I see is folks going into Security Copilot and asking, can you write a KQL query for this type of incident or this type of data that I want to get back? And it easily is able to write that, and you can kind of plug and play that query into the environment in order to retrieve whatever results you're looking for. Just another example of upskilling your teams in that fashion. So without further ado, as I mentioned, I don't like just talking through slides all the time, but hopefully you see the value and kind of a high-level overview of Security Copilot. What I'd like to do is demo the solution at a high level. So I'll stop sharing really quick here and jump over to our demo environment. See, hopefully the demo gods will be favorable and everything will work as I've run through it a couple of times. So hopefully you're seeing my screen now. This is the Security Copilot. There's two experiences with Security Copilot. There's the standalone experience, which is what you're looking at on the screen right now. And then there's an embedded experience. So we have Security Copilot embedded in various areas within the Microsoft suite of products. But that, again, you don't need to have that. You don't have to have the Microsoft suite of products available to you, which I'll showcase in a second, how you can plug in additional data points in order to leverage Security Copilot. But this is the standalone experience. There is a portal that you can go to and see, this experience with Security Copilot. I wanted to say it's a fairly clean interface in terms of, you have your natural language query area down here. But I think the first question that I typically see when folks are working with Security Copilot is, hey, what do I even ask this thing? We think of natural language as it should be easy. We speak it every day. But it's not, that's usually the case. It's not always simple in order to see what I should be asking Security Copilot. So with that said, we have given a number of prompts that might be of value to you, where you can see the prompts here. There's a number of prompts out of box that are available to leverage here. And if you click these, it would simply plug in the response. And if it needs additional data like incidents or app names, you could do so. It would ask you for that here. There's also prompt books, which are a series of prompts that you could run to achieve some result, which we'll actually see a demo for in a bit. So these are a prompt sequence rather than just a single prompt. You're able to filter these prompts by your role. So if there's something that, let's just say you're a CISO and you wanted to come to Security Copilot and see a prompt book that might apply to you, we do have some prompts already built in, but you can filter by role, as well as the plugins, which are the data points that I mentioned earlier. And you can see there's a number of third-party tools here outside of the Microsoft suite of things here that you can sift through. If there's a specific prompt or prompt book that applies to the plugin, you can check that here as well. For example, the Shodan example, there's a 5-prompt sequence to leverage there if you needed to. Now, with that said, let's check here. Where do I add these plugins? Like, what data can I plug in to leverage for grounding information for Security Copilot? That's where you would check the sources down here. So again, we have this filtered by the Microsoft suite of products, but more importantly, because again, we understand that folks don't always standardize on Microsoft stuff. There are a number of non-Microsoft plugins as well, where again, these are giving Copilot access to security services and things that you might use, so it can ground its responses in your data. Now, again, want to make clear again, we are not training the models for anything. This is not, when you add these features or these plugins here, we are not training our LLM based on your data at all. There's a clear boundary where this data lives in your environment, stays in your environment, and what is sent to the LLM has nothing to do with the data that you have. And then when it returns, it fills in the blanks based on your data back in your environment, and compute that lives in your environment as well. So this is not, there is a clear boundary in terms of what you're adding to this. This is not adding data to the LLM, the large language model, at all. But with non-Microsoft stuff, again, you can see here that there's a number of different tools that you can plug in. And we're trying to meet you where you're at in terms of third party, that if you want to leverage this AI tool, it doesn't have to be all on Microsoft stuff. We also have the ability here to do custom plugins as well. So if you wanted to set up a custom plugin, if it's not listed here, you can do that here at the bottom and set up a custom plugin if we were to turn this on. So you do have the ability there to add that. Here's Splunk is another fairly common one in terms of SIEM solutions. So I just wanted to be clear that that is something that is offered to you. We are adding to this every day. You can see their solutions in preview, but new plugins for third parties are being added every day. And if there's something that's missing here, I'm sure our cyber teams are working on, or engineering teams rather, are working on adding things to this list. So with that said, let's take a look at and do a couple of prompts to see kind of how this works. Now, I will stress this is a guided demo environment. I can't just ask it questions on the fly because it doesn't always work. So I will be switching in and out of the guided piece of this so you can clearly see how this runs and some prompts you can try. Then we'll take a look at the agent marketplace and the security store so you can see all the different agents involved. So turning back onto the guided mode here, we want to generate a security health report. So we're saying you're a CISO and you want to see a security health report within your environment. So I'm going to execute this prompt. So it says, okay, this is a security health report. I want to generate, your prompt is, I want to generate a comprehensive report that addresses the following topics. So again, you want to get this report, just an overview to what to look at. And again, this is a demo environment. It's not live or real data. So this is just, it was a demo environment that we have here. So I clicked that prompt and it's now running. So you can see Security Copilot always tells you the steps involved that it's taking. So it's saying, I want to retrieve the current state of security health across Sentinel as Defender. Now, again, in this example, it is using Microsoft suite of products, but again, if you had other plugins, for example, if you were using Splunk, it would know to leverage that based on the query that you provided. So it tells you clearly, what am I looking at? Like, I'm going to retrieve it from Sentinel and Defender. I retrieve the information, and then it's going to prepare the response in return. So you can see I get a comprehensive health report here in terms of the evidence within my environment. I get a status of the effectiveness and the incident response alerting mechanisms that I have. So again, looking at Defender and Sentinel, I can also get the status of what monitoring systems I have in place. So again, from a CISO view, this is what I'm looking at here. This might be of value to you. And again, just one small example here in terms of what we're seeing with Security Copilot and how you can generate that report. We also might be looking to do an incident summary as another example, a simple example of, hey, I have an incident and I need to know some more information about that particular incident. So with that, I can just run a simple prompt in terms of the incident ID I might have in an email that I just received. And I want to add that incident ID here and give me a quick summary of what happened. So I've clicked the prompt, applied the incident ID, and now I'm going to run this in my environment to see what that incident was about. Very simple example. So it does an incident analysis. If we look at exactly what it's doing, it looks at the incident, processes the request, and then prepares a response, and then gives you a very clear definition of what actually happened. Multiple logon attempts that happened within the environment. There was 15 alerts that were generated, and I need to find some more information. Now, here, typically what I would see is you can go and it gives you a reference for where it got all this information from. In this case, it was within Defender, and you can click and launch into Defender to quickly see more information. Or you can continue to natural language prompt to ask it more questions about the information. Hey, what is this account? Where did it log in from? Can you see, you said that there was multiple login attempts. And then that's how I've seen examples to where you can continue to natural language prompt and work through the investigation for forensic analysis, or just go into the system that it's getting this from and look at it that way as well. So you have that option in terms of how you would like to continue the investigation, but we're also going to give you the link. If you want to dive into the tool that's giving this information, you can go there. So again, very simple examples of how this would work within your environment. But as I said, as you get more involved, you can see how this tool can be beneficial in order to speed your response within your environment. I'm going to jump back to the home screen here because I'd like to show off. I don't have an agent to demo, but real quick, because I know we're getting a little short on time. But going to agents, agents work. We give you a little blurb here on agents working on your behalf. As of right now in this demo environment, we have just the Microsoft agents that are available to you out of box. And you can see how there's various agents that you can run on a schedule to, like I mentioned, the access review is one, or conditional access optimization. If you wanted to have it take a viewpoint or review your conditional access policies in Entra, that would be an example that you can take a look at, or the phishing triage, and have these things run on a schedule and check for things on your behalf. And then again, it's not like it's running all these workflows autonomously. You can add human in the loop interactions or checks to say before it proceeds. So again, tightly controlled agents that can run in your environment and help improve your security posture over time. And the last piece of this is, you saw all the agents that were available from the Microsoft suite. Well, if you jump to the Microsoft Security Store, as I mentioned, we've developed a very deep partner ecosystem to where our partners are publishing agents as well that can be added to Security Copilot. So you could come to the Security Store, and if you see an agent that might be of value to you, or if you're working with any of their partners and you say, hey, I have Security Copilot, do you have any agents that you've built that I can plug in? We have a very rich security ecosystem where we're having our partners help build so we can add additional value to Security Copilot. Because again, understanding that not everyone standardizes on Microsoft stuff, you have a diversified portfolio of tools you use, and we want to make sure they're effective when you're leveraging AI in order to enhance your cybersecurity teams. So again, take a look at the Security Store. There's a lot of stuff out there that's available to you to leverage. I will pause here. That kind of concludes the demo. And again, Security Copilot, AI, and cybersecurity, this could be, a 2 or 3 hour talk where we're demoing a lot of different things. But hopefully you get the idea of how we at Microsoft are viewing AI for cybersecurity as almost like a trusted tool for you to leverage in order to enhance your teams, given all the data that you have to work with to make you more effective as a cybersecurity professional.